I guess what I don't want to do with this podcast is like contribute to romanticizing the hustle.
Oh, it is not. Yes, it is not romantic at all.
Welcome to Artists and Offices, a podcast that explores, through interviews with working artists, the idea that the work you do for pay supports the work you do for love. Or does it? I'm your host, Rebecca Bird Grigsby, visual artist, crafty generalist, and dance enthusiast. Having quit my full-time day job in 2017, I'm currently a recovering artist in offices, rebooting my studio practice while trying to figure out my next career move. Each episode of this podcast explores the perspective of an individual artist juggling their creative practice with their day job. In episode 4, I speak with painter Helena Hsieh, who can be found in the Los Angeles area juggling 2 to 3 part-time jobs at any given time.
My name is Helena Hsieh. I'm 36. I live in Long Beach, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. I am a part-time art teacher, art educator, and bookstore associate at a contemporary art museum in Los Angeles.
Unlike most of the artists I interviewed for this podcast who have one more or less 9-to-5 job, Helena cobbles together 2 to 3 part-time paid gigs alongside her studio practice as a painter, in addition to her significant commute from Long Beach to Los Angeles, otherwise known as the hustle. So is that when people ask you, what do you do? Is that how you respond?
Yeah, usually I tell them I don't do just one thing because I have usually two part-time jobs right now.
And do you tell people you're an artist doing these things?
Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah.
That's key, right?
Yeah, that is very key.
Okay.
That's why I'm doing these other things.
Exactly. That's why you have 3 part-time jobs.
Yeah.
So tell me about your path to art. As a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I wanted to be an artist. In, I think, kindergarten. They were asking us what we wanted, the usual question, what do you want to be? And you have to draw it. And so I drew myself as an artist with a palette and, smock and all that.
And where did you go from there? Like, tell me about the path from kindergarten to, deciding to go to SFAI, for example.
I did have private lessons in art, and I did do this program called Ryman, a program for high school students that you apply with a portfolio, and it's on Saturdays. You get taught by professional artists, and it was outside of school, so it was like additional if you wanted more, in-depth training in art, where you got to draw nude models, and then professional artists talk to you about careers. So, and that was through the Ryman program for young artists. And then I also did another program at CalArts, which is California Summer School for the Arts, another thing where you apply with your portfolio and you stay on campus for a month and you get to do classes with professional artists.
Similar to most of the artists I interviewed for this podcast, Helena was interested in lots of different things, and despite wanting to be an artist from a very early age, that aspiration is rarely accompanied by a clear or linear path to success.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to major in college. I mean, I tried to major in fine art, or design, but the departments were really tricky to get into, and I decided that English was the next best thing.
So what did you do if you were majoring in English in college? How did you, did you continue? Were you able to continue that training?
Oh, yes. So while I was doing English, they had these life drawing workshops, and I would attend them every week. And then I also took photography. It was darkroom photography, and then I just kept on doing art, even though I couldn't get into the major, and I would just paint in my free time. Along the way, I grew more, I guess, practical. I realized I didn't really want to be a starving artist or the stereotypical starving artist. I figured I would get a day job doing something creative and then do art on the side. So I thought I'd become a designer, a graphic designer specifically. And my parents were, they're very kind of traditional Chinese family, so they definitely didn't want me to just be an artist. So they encouraged me to do something, as my day job, and then do art, on the side. So I would take classes at the city college in watercolor, figure painting, life drawing, and just do it after work. Just after my job, I would just go eat dinner at home and then go to the class and make art, after work and then on Saturdays. And then when I did become a designer, I realized that it was really not what I wanted to do as a day job. It was creative, but also stifling. And also I was in front of a computer for 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, and I was very depressed. And I did it for 2 years, and I quit that job to go to art school.
So you had the 2-year sort of graphic design stint, and then you went to SFAI, and then did you go directly from SFAI to museum school?
Yeah, so I did. I went to SFAI I transferred all my credits from my undergrad degree, so I only had to do studio courses, which was great at SFAI. So then after that, after I got my BFA in painting, I had a year to apply to grad school. So I was just working, just doing various odd jobs.
Can you talk a little bit about any of those?
Sure. Yeah. So I was a mystery shopper for a San Francisco soup company. That was interesting. I got that gig because I was a brand ambassador for another company. I was passing out freebies downtown San Francisco, and I guess one of the heads of the SF soup company saw me, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to work for me and do some promotional, a mystery shopping for my company?" And I was like, "Sure." And so then I, did that for a little bit, where I would go and I'd get petty cash, and I would go to the soup company, and sometimes I would pretend there was something wrong with my soup so I could see, I had to write this down, how they reacted to, "Oh, this is too salty, so could I get some different kind of soup?" And
fast forwarding, we're going to skip over some stuff and then we'll get back to it. But tell me more about your current day job.
Yeah, so I work part-time at this contemporary art museum in Los Angeles. So I work in the bookstore. Yeah, I mainly work in the shop, although I have worked in the galleries as a visitor services associate, answering questions about the artwork and making sure people don't touch the artwork or get too close. And then I recently also had the opportunity to set up the Ai Weiwei show. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, and that was a month, and where I was working over full time for doing that, and then working also in the store, and then taking an art education class at night 1 day a week. So that was kind of insane.
Wow.
So
is that something that in terms of sort of like day job goals, is that something you're working toward? Is teaching more?
Yeah, I was doing that, but I'm not so sure if I want to teach secondary school. So especially since I will be teaching at a community college next month. Starting next month, I'll be teaching one class.
So was that, I know for me, that was a primary reason I went to get my MFA, was sort of 50-50. I just wanted to spend time in the studio, and I thought I needed to go back to school to do that. And then I wanted to teach. So was that a motivation for you for going to grad school?
Yes, definitely. To teach college, you need a master's. So that was definitely one of the main reasons I wanted to get my master's, to be able to teach college.
And so you graduated from museum school in 2012, right?
Yes, that's right.
And so let's see, that's 6 years. So did you try to teach initially?
Yeah, so I got a graduate teaching fellowship, one of the ones that they had for graduates after the year after they graduate. I got a painting postgraduate teaching fellowship. So I did that for the year after. And then after that, I was teaching adults at the adult education centers. There's one in Brookline and one in Cambridge. So I was doing that. I was teaching three classes, one class in Brookline and then maybe 2 or 3 at Cambridge while working in the studio. So that was quite a lot, just kind of going from one end of Boston to the other. I was just so tired all the time.
Yeah. When did you move to Long Beach?
Oh, so I moved back to Long Beach in 2016 from Vancouver, where I was doing a teaching fellowship at Emily Carr University of Art and Design, in Vancouver, British Columbia. So I got that through, I was nominated by a museum faculty for that, and I had to interview at different art colleges. I did interview at SFAI, and then Emily Carr was the other one that interviewed me, and I got the one at Emily Carr. Yeah, after that concluded, I moved back to Long Beach. There was the original idea to move from Boston to Long Beach, but then I got that gig.
After the visiting faculty position at Emily Carr concluded, Helena relocated to Long Beach, where she lives and works now. Describe your studio space or setup now.
Yeah, so I live at in a house. It's my family's house, though they don't live here. And we have a dining room that, nobody really uses their dining room, seems like. So my husband and I turned it into my space, and I don't usually need a lot of space. So I have an easel, a rolling cart for supplies, my palette, an IKEA folding table, one of those sort of TV dinner tray size ones for my laptop, and then these French doors open in the summer so I can, get some fresh air. And then when I do research, I have a desk in my bedroom with my laptop and a view of the back garden.
And would you say your primary medium right now is painting? Oil painting?
Yes, that is my main medium. Although I have been doing more drawing with ink in my sketchbook. I've been trying to do more sketching lately.
And having a studio in your home, is that ideal for you, or does that vary from how you've had studio setups in the past?
Yeah, it can be good and bad. I've had an outside studio before. I've had worked from home before. Yeah, home studio. I think there's pros and cons to both. Being at home, there's more distractions, so that is something that I need to kind of, overcome, just those daily distractions that you have at home. Whereas when I had my other studio, I didn't have as many home distractions, but then at the same time, I'd have to trek to that studio.
Pay for that studio.
Yeah, and then get lunch somewhere, whereas at home I could just make lunch instead of spending money on food or trying to bring something and heat it up, and hopefully there's a microwave at the studio, which usually there was one.
Especially with such limited time, I would imagine that pro of not having a commute to the studio is pretty important.
Exactly.
Right
yeah, especially when I remember having a studio in Somerville, and especially in the winter, and living in Brookline where I'd have to take 2 trains and then walk or take a bus. And it was 20 degrees or, and then schlepping all my stuff.
Since recording this interview in January 2019, Helena and her husband, artist Christopher Thomas Ford, see episode 6, have been working on building out a shared studio space in their home's garage. And I'm curious, especially with someone like you who has multiple, you really are kind of doing the hustle of having multiple things. Is your approach rigid, like a workout schedule, or is it more organic, kind of depending on what creative work you're working on at the time, your work schedule, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'd say mine is more organic. I would like it to be more rigid, but because of my changing, jobs and school schedule last year was just all over the place. So this year I'm hoping I'll just have 2 part-time jobs, and then hopefully my goal is to do more of a rigid schedule, but right now it's more organic when I have time, because I usually work certain days and then I'll take extra shifts, but I'll usually work on the days off. Another thing is I feel like when you move around a lot, it takes a lot of time to get settled in a new place. So I feel like, especially getting work, finding when I moved back to Long Beach, I was like, I had to get a day job. And then all my time was spent applying for jobs, living in a house where it's not all my stuff, it's my family stuff. So there's a lot of clutter, and then just kind of, getting rid of things, especially because I'm living in the house that I grew up in. So I have a lot of stuff I need to get rid of.
I'm curious if that gets incorporated into your work at all.
I'm not sure. I'm still working around that. That is something I've thought of, making work about clutter, and my work is a lot about my like daily
Mm-hmm.
life. So that's something, yeah, I'm considering. Think of this one painting I had. I think it's called Blank Canvas or Studio, and it was my studio at SMFA, and there was a lot of stuff in it. And I painted everything that was in the image. Like the
Yeah.
garbage bags and coffee, Dunkin' Donuts coffee cups and Starbucks, and just like the reference material and just everything.
So are there any things that you do outside of work and studio time that you feel are critical, like meditation, journaling, or exercise, for example?
Yes, I do like taking walks. I think it's important to exercise, especially if one is in the studio all the time. And if you don't use your whole body, I feel like you can get really sedentary. Going to see art shows and journaling. I used to do more journaling, but I felt that was very therapeutic.
Yeah, it sounds though like maybe the sketching is because I think of sketching as kind of a form of journaling.
Yes,
It sounds like you're trying to do that more.
Yeah, I've been trying to do more where I'll just, me and my husband be watching TV or just have something on the background, and we'll sketch each other or sketch stuff around us, and something kind of just low stakes where it's not anything for a show or, just no pressure.
So you mentioned going to shows. That's a good segue to my next question, which is talking about, again, I'm really interested in with such limited time to sort of, be an artist, kind of juggling that with the importance of having an art community. And of course, that's different for everybody. How do you find time for studio visits? How often do you try to go to so many show openings a month or, how often do you try to do this and how do you fit that in?
Yeah, that is so hard because last year I had no time for any of that. Hopefully, I'm trying to change that this year because I'm not taking classes anymore. I find social media really great for connecting with people. So I've been in contact with some people about doing some studio visits.
Yeah, that's interesting. Kind of using social media to have more in-person studio visits and stuff, using one to kind of bolster the other potentially.
Yeah, I'm one of those where I don't want to be spending too much time doing that. I mean, I wish I had more time, but I'm not that kind of person. So I'll post once in a while. And actually, that's how I got my first solo show when I moved back to Los Angeles. I posted an update to my website when I was, I think, in Vancouver still or Boston, and someone from the museum school was doing shows in LA, and she contacted me and asked me if I wanted to do a show at her new space.
Since Helena juggles multiple part-time jobs, she doesn't really have a typical set weekend like most of the artists and offices I speak with. I'm curious to hear how she handles her time off. How do weekends differ for you from weekdays? Or how much of your work, like your work for pay, happens on the weekend? Or are you able to kind of fit in a little more studio time then?
Yeah, so my weekends don't really differ. I mean, they differ in that my weekends are my weekdays and that I work usually on the weekends, my day job. Like I work Sundays for sure, and then sometimes Saturdays. So actually, the weekdays are my weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of reversed, which I prefer because then everybody else is at work and then I can go and run errands and there's not a lot of people around.
So that saves time. So I guess I should rephrase that question moving forward. How do your days off differ from your work days?
Yeah, so they're more relaxed. I mean, I'll have more time to just do work I want to do.
Do you, because I'm more of the kind of person where I'm like, there is no free moment. Like everything is planned. Like if I have a day with nothing planned, I'm in the studio. But at the same time, I think there's an argument for doing nothing.
I agree with that. I think some days you just need a day where you're not doing anything and you're just relaxing. And also I'm trying not to work as much so that I can have more time for making art. So
it sounds like for you, maybe there isn't really a typical weekday routine right now. Does it?
No.
Does it vary?
Yeah, it varies.
Every day's a little different.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also trying to Marie Kondo my place now as well. And that takes a lot of time.
It really does.
Oh my gosh.
There's a great section in Austin Kleon's latest book, Keep Going, where he considers the usefulness of the decluttering trend for artists and their studio spaces specifically. He writes, "Keep your tools tidy and your materials messy."
Yeah, exactly. I feel like because I need my space, it's kind of cluttered right now, and it's hard for me to work when I'm trying to find a tool that I know is somewhere and that wastes time, and I really hate that. So I really need to get the space just decluttered in order to work. Yeah.
So you mentioned before, like, for example, when you were working on the Ai Weiwei exhibit, it sounds like your day job, was probably taking up more of your time than usual.
Yes.
So how do you get through those periods? I mean, that sounds like a really incredible experience in and of itself, but it's still pulling you away from your creative practice. So how do you stay motivated through periods like that? Like, do you still make a point to make work, or do you just kind of hang in there? Like, what's your strategy?
Yeah, I'm usually, so when we have breaks or I take public transit too. So I get a lot of time to kind of just read and think. So in those kind of moments throughout the day, I'll think about my work or what ideas, what to make. Like any moment I get, I will just jot something down or be reading something related to what I want to make, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So even if you don't have these larger chunks of time to work in the studio, it sounds like you're still taking advantage of those I kind of think of those as like bridges from one activity to another.
Yes.
It also makes me think of, I don't know if you've read the Jerry Saltz, the 33 Rules for Being an Artist.
Yeah.
I can't remember which rule it is, but one of them, he talks about artists being sneaky. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of, so it's not necessarily like embezzling time from your employer, but I think like I think artists are just very scrappy and very almost like opportunistic. And so I love that, like that kind of taking advantage of, I've got 15 minutes, I'm going to jot down some ideas, or I'm going to read this art, or I'm going to look at some images online, or I'm going to go through this gallery, or
jot notes down on a Post-it or just like a napkin or anything. And then, or my phone, like I'll, anything I can get and just
make a note on your phone. I find that and I have to remember to actually like go back to it.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I'm more of a paper person in that way, because it's like, oh, what's this piece of paper? Oh, that, in my pocket.
I love paper though. So, but then I have this issue where I have so much little scraps with like a sentence, or I have to gather it all and then put it in one spot and go through everything, and then maybe transfer that to my sketchbook or my planner.
So you mentioned before getting this exhibition opportunity through social media and, through your museum school connection. So can we talk a little bit more about showing your work? Do you have time to submit your art to exhibitions?
Yeah, usually it's online, so it's great. Like I remember the days where you had to get slides.
This would be a good spot to pause for an Amy Schumer-style joke about introducing millennials to the world of slides and slide carousels, but I'm not much of a comic, so younger listeners, feel free to Google it and be thankful for how the internet has streamlined this process.
So everything's online, and I will have to make time to submit to those grants. I've gotten a grant before.
So you feel like those are worth sort of taking the time? Because I mean, even though it's, like you say, it's easier to do it online, but it's still a time commitment.
Yes, it is a time commitment. So I'll be choosy. I won't apply to everything because I don't have time to, and not everything I feel is worth the time, So I'll be very picky about what I apply to.
Talking a little bit more about social media in terms of sharing or even selling your work online, I noticed you have is it Society 6?
Yes, I have a Society 6. Although I kind of haven't been updating that lately because I don't sell too much on there. Well, I try to use social media, but I'm not really, what's the word? Intense about it, I guess, because the most important thing is making the work for me. But I have gotten a commission through Instagram, but it was like a friend of a friend. And I also, sell on Society 6, although, I don't really publicize it too much because of everything else I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm wondering too if it's I've talked with a few other folks who it kind of gets into the creative community question a bit in terms of, especially I feel like so many of us who went to school on the East Coast and then dispersed, that it's been a way to kind of stay connected. And like you and I have never actually met in person, but we've stayed connected through social media. So
Yes.
how do you feel about it in that way?
Oh, I think it's great for that in terms of, yes, I think the internet and social media have many ways made it easier for people to connect with similar communities, especially going to the museum school. It takes a lot of time to even just take a shot. So you want to compose it perfectly or have the right lighting, make sure there's not any extraneous. But I mean, even the ones I took a few for for the podcast, I had to, ask someone else to take my picture at work and then make sure there weren't too many customers, or I had to move some things. And even like my studio, I had to take a bunch of shots and then look through them and then take some more, or, move some things around, have someone else take it, that sort of thing. And that sort of thing takes time. So it's like another whole other thing that takes time. And also posting when to post. I know there's an algorithm for when there will be a lot more people seeing your posts on, say, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It does. It's funny though. It does seem like my sort of small sample group, that not that many people are too strategic about it. It's sort of like, you do your best, but ultimately, what's more important is making the work. I mean, you want to show it and get it out there, but if you're going to kind of decide, I have an hour, should I spend it on making work or posting pictures of my process, most people, it seems like, will, I think, wisely choose to spend quality time in the studio. I'm always curious to hear, especially from artists whose day jobs are somewhat more aligned with their creative interests, if that paid work supports their studio work in ways that aren't necessarily financial. If you can talk maybe about everything you're doing right now and how it is there sort of an exchange with your creative practice and vice versa.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So in terms of the museum work, I work with a lot of artists. I also get to work with my hands. So kind of learning, I don't know, different sort of ways of handling artwork and just seeing how, especially the artwork I'm working with is not painting. So a lot of it is kind of new to me. And seeing how other people work, and also how major institutions handle the artwork, and kind of like the other end of the spectrum. And in terms of teaching, I'm also using my hands in showing demonstrations, and then also I also have to take my class to a show, an exhibition, and in LA, and they have to write a paper. So I have to, look up what's going on and what would be appropriate in terms of an exhibition that would be pertainable to a life drawing class. And then when I'm back in the bookstore in the museum, I also get to see a lot of different literature on color theory or art theorists and new artists and catalogs, that sort of thing. And that also is very inspirational for my work. So,
have you ever considered just doing something completely different for your income?
No, I haven't considered doing something, because I have done day jobs where it was more computer oriented, but that was not ideal. And I did learn a lot from that one design job in terms of the Photoshop. I got really good at it. So that was very helpful.
So I guess a good sort of next question would be, how does studio time fit into this? And then have you ever felt the need to take a break from your studio practice? Like if you're, for whatever reason, if you're kind of going through a busy time at work, or, like right now you're kind of working on building out the studio, which kind of flexes a lot of the same like literal muscles as studio time. So have you ever kind of just said, you know what, I'm just going to take a break? And were there any benefits in doing so?
Yeah, I actually have been, because of everything lately, I've been really wanting a vacation. Yeah, sometimes I feel like there's just too much going on, especially if you work more than one job. It's just a lot, like physically and emotionally kind of turning off different parts of your brain. And then also just preparing for the work. I have like 2 different backpacks for each job. Like one job's for school, for teaching, and then the other is for my, whatever museum work. And then just making sure I have the proper tools for each job, and then make sure I don't forget anything.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious if, because it sounds like in this kind of what you're describing is like not you deciding to take a break so much as just not having the time. And does that like eat away at you, or are you of the kind of mindset that, you'll come back to it eventually? Like,
yes, I am of the latter where, you can. I had I had been having headaches lately. And so I'm trying not to stress out, because what is the point? And it just takes a toll. So, and I know I'll come back to it eventually. So what am I supposed to do?
right.
It can let it eat at me and drive me nuts and give me more migraines, or just kind of just let it go and it'll be all right, and not get a headache over it.
Yeah. Your studio practice will still be there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because I feel like that is a common thread that's come up in these conversations, and it kind of is a nice pushback against, I feel like I see such conflicting advice for creative people where it's like, don't quit your day job, don't monetize your joy. But then it's also like the sort of flip side of it is like, you should be producing work all the time. Like what's the saying I see a lot? It's like, do the verb, not the noun, like which I think kind of implies that if you're not making art, like it's more important to make art than call yourself an artist, which I understand that. But I also feel like that doesn't allow for these necessary breaks, more along the lines of like, this is a lifelong choice, like a lifestyle choice that we've made. And there are going to be times if especially if you're not independently wealthy and you have to work, like life is going to get in the way, but the work will still be there.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's a long game. It's something you work on for like ever.
The thing I kind of try to come back to is not putting out any particular agenda or thesis, but exploring this argument that the work you do for pay supports the work you do for love, and you should be grateful for both. And so I get that. And obviously most of us need to make money, but I also don't, like I said, I want to explore that without contributing to like what I see as kind of romanticizing this hustle, that art should fit in the nooks and crannies of our lives instead of being something that we should make money from or have more time to do. And so as someone who is, I think, the closest again of this little subset who's really hustling multiple creative positions, and I don't know, what's your take on that, and how do you kind of balance that? Like I said, I mean, it really seems like it works for you, and I would be more drawn to the kinds of things that you're doing, even though I realize it's not glamorous, than working in an office 8 hours a day necessarily.
Yes, because I've actually done that, working in an office, and I actually prefer this.
Okay, final question. This one is surprisingly difficult for most artists to answer. Would you quit your day job if you could?
I guess that would be sure. Yeah. I mean, in terms of just doing my art full time and not doing anything else?
It's not necessarily just more time in the studio. It's more time to do all those other things that again, it kind of goes back to that third way of plugging into your community as an artist that's not necessarily making your work. So I think it's a difficult question to answer because we can't really imagine a world in which we wouldn't need to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think most people that I've talked to just have never kind of considered that they would make money from their art. And so it's sort of like you're always going to have to juggle some work with, studio practice. But I think it's an interesting question to consider, if you had more time, if you didn't have to worry about, if your basic needs were met, would you keep your, would you continue to teach as a way to kind of interact with that community? Or would you just use the time to like go to all the shows in LA and,
I would travel, I think. Yeah. I mean, I think the reason why I don't mind doing all these jobs is the variety. So just like not doing the same thing. I think that was what bothered me about my full-time job. That was the same thing, but it was a different day. It was just over and over and over again.
What are your longer term goals in terms of that sort of life, work, art balance in, let's say, 5 years, or, whatever if you have a sort of arbitrary plan over a number of years?
For me, I just want to be able to have the time and energy and means to just make work, regardless. Whatever job I have, I'll make it work.
More information about Helena can be found at artistsandoffices.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I speak with Janine Biano, a Brooklyn-based visual artist and museum archivist. Artists and Offices is produced and edited by me, Rebecca Bird Grigsby. Intro music is provided by Mr. Neat Beats. Show notes and additional episodes can be found at artistsandoffices.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on iTunes and leave the show a rating or review. This will help the podcast connect with even more artists and offices. Thank you so much for listening.
I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. I don't have like super lofty goals. I'm like less stressed out about like, oh, I have to be constantly making work or I'm not an artist. As long as I have the time, space, I will be happy.